there is no good or bad. Like we like to label things as good, bad, positive, whatever. But really, if we do detach and just let things be, that's like the healthiest thing we can do. I've been a mean girl in my life. Not that it's an excuse, but I also had some bullying happening. So it's like, I really just want to be kind and I really want to be inclusive and I really want to make sure like everybody feels seen. And I think that stems from me not being seen. The words and the things that you say really matter day in and day out. When you're like shaming yourself or cutting yourself down, like that stuff really matters and makes an impact. Who little person in there is being triggered, talking to them, validating them, and being like, hey, I don't know if you realize, but like time kept going. We're actually 35 now. This 12-year-old version of me that is like really feeling bad and down, and like that's all really valid. But we grew up to be 35 and we started to actually figure some things out. And like, I promise I'm going to keep you safer than you are believing that I will.
Hi, Carly. Welcome to Becoming You. I'm so happy and excited to have you on the show today.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And it's funny calling you Carly. I know that's your kind of colloquial name, but you had posted literally on Instagram yesterday a whole list of things about yourself. And one of them is like, my real friends know my name is Carlin or Carlan, and I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. So, how do you say your real name?
Oh, it's Carlin. It's funny because like I for a long time hated that was like my real name. It felt so formal, which was my mom was like kind of going for that. But like my
Mhm.
closest friends will call me Carlin.
That's
And
so
then if I'm in
funny.
trouble, it's Carlin Van, which is my first and
Right.
middle, which is for a lot of people. Like if you get multi-named, like you really are in it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's true. Like some people get first and last name. I've always gone by Katrina, so good, bad, or indifferent. That's my name basically. So never know if I'm in trouble or not. The name is not a giveaway for me, but I appreciated you sharing that because I think when people are friends for any amount of time, you want to feel that closeness and you want to feel like, oh, but I'm your good friend, right? So I should know these things about you. Otherwise, who am I and how well do I really know you? Which is so funny because
Yeah.
you and I only met, earlier this year at a women's retreat down in Tulum, which was amazing. For folks who didn't go on the retreat or aren't familiar, Carly and I stayed in tents on the beach. So we woke up every morning with the sun rising in Mexico, and it was just unbelievable. I left my phone in the tent for that entire, 5 days or however long we were there, and just did whatever I could to disconnect as much as possible. And I know you and I and another woman there, we had that experience, and some folks lived in the house during that time frame, so they had a little bit of a different experience. But what can you say about that, and just really what brought you there? Because that's how you and I met. So I'd love to know, what brought you to that point.
Yeah. So I had never been on a retreat, and it was right at the time I was like really starting my business and like opening like brick and mortar doors, whatever. And so
Hmm.
I saw it and I was like, you know what? This is something that I really want to do for myself because it had been a really like chaotic and gnarly like 2 years. And
Hmm.
so I just felt like it was something that I really needed to go into like the next year, the next phase. Like I just really wanted to pour into myself. And I saw it actually on an Instagram ad. And so I think I told you, like, I tried so hard not to look at anything about it because I really wanted it to be this genuine thing that I saw because I was like, the universe like brought it to me. It's what I need. And then I was like, so afraid I was going to get like what's it called, Firefly or the Fire Festival. I was like,
Right,
I hope that
exactly.
this isn't like a scam. I have a like deep paranoia thing going on, so I like don't trust. And so I was like, if this is like sketchy or I hate everything about it, like I'm gonna be so upset. But it wasn't anything like that. It was so exactly what I needed. I too like tried to keep away my phone. I remember one day I just literally was like napping on the porch for a few hours, just truly resting. It was, the breath work, and I hadn't done a lot of breath work either. So to go on a breath work
Hmm.
retreat, but I remember having like so many experiences where I felt like I was transcending and I was like, Wow, this is so cool that I can like get in touch with this without like drugs or alcohol, which was another thing that I really loved. Like, who goes to Mexico and doesn't think about like partying? But it was like such a
Yeah.
wholesome full circle moment to like really dive into myself in another country and travel by myself.
Right. No, I love that. And it takes so much courage to do that too. So it's just amazing that you believed in yourself and trusted the journey and the process, the universe and yourself to get you to that point. I remember when we met and we were speaking in a group, and you shared with all of us that you hate being seen. You hate us, kind of spotlighting you. It just made you feel so uncomfortable, which was wild to me because you and I had already started building a friendship at that point. And I just was getting to know you so organically. And I could see like the quirky side of you, but to me, it was fearless. It was like, this is who Carly is, and you don't care. And it's kind of like take it or leave it. But I resonate with that energy so much because I want us to be able to show up authentically in the world, and I don't want us to be rejected. It's so easy to try to dial it back and people please your way through life if people are responding in a negative way to your energy. So then you're like, okay, I'll change. I promise. Like, that's not really who I am. But when you meet your people, you just feel so free to really be yourself and not have to hide so much. Just tell me a little bit more about that because I still don't see you as someone who needs to hide it all. But obviously, that feels differently for you.
Yeah. Oh, um, it's I don't know how to explain it really. It's like this is who I am, but I do, and like I wish I could say like I don't care if you don't like me. I would like to like think that, but I really do care. Like I really want you to like me. I want you to vibe with me. Like I also don't want to be somebody that's like I've been a mean girl in my life. There's like times I have like a lot of shame about like how mean I was to kids. And but not that it's an excuse, but I also had some bullying happening. So it's like, I really just want to be kind and I really want to be inclusive and I really want to make sure like everybody feels seen. And I think that stems from me not being seen, but it is that thing that's like, here I am. I really hope you like me. And if you don't, that's okay. Also with the ADHD, there's like a rejection sensitivity. So people with ADHD like really struggle with rejection. And I didn't learn that until later in life. And so I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, if I feel like someone is rejecting my idea or me, like, it hits a lot differently. Um, but I do think that there's something, I try to go back and affirm myself, like, there's only one of me, and nobody's had the unique experiences that I've had. And that is part of like my brand and my mission is like to encourage people to show up authentically, but it is terrifying.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I wasn't familiar with the fact that folks with ADHD may feel rejection differently. And I'm wondering too, if you go undiagnosed, how would you know that it could be a contributor of having ADHD? And that's why rejection feels the way it does versus life experiences or feeling like maybe in business you were taught something specific. Like, for instance, my career started in sales, so we're taught not to worry about rejection. There's a phrase, three no's and a go. So unless you have the customer say no to you three times, you're going to keep trying to move around their objections and find a way in to get them to say yes. So you're not meant to take rejection personally. And so you can condition and coach yourself to not fear rejection and to be the face of a brand or something like that. But in person to person connection, a lot of times rejection does hit really hard. And sometimes it's traced back to your childhood. So, how do you know if it's from ADHD or from something else?
Well, so that's a really great point because as somebody with ADHD, I have done a lot of learning later in my life about what ADHD looks like. Um, I can tell you a funny anecdotal story. When I was in middle school, I don't know if I
Hmm.
told you this actually. I
I
maybe
don't
did.
think so.
My mom
We'll
sent
see.
me to school for a week unmedicated and didn't
Oh,
tell anyone.
yes. Yes, you told me
And
this.
then she wrote all my teachers a note at the end of the week and were like told them what she had done to see if like the medicine really made a difference.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, please don't ever do this again. That was like not a good time.
Right.
So I always like thought of ADHD as just being like impulsive and like fidgety. And I realized, like, once I got like deeper into social work, once I started, becoming a therapist, I started to realize that there's so many more like personality traits about it. And so people with ADHD also struggle in relationships because of that rejection sensitivity we were talking about. Also are super empathetic. Gabor Mate is one of my favorite authors. He is a physician as well, and he studies ADHD. And so one of my favorite books is called The Myth of Normal. He talks a
Oh.
lot, which is like speaks to my social work heart because it talks about how like everything in our life shapes who we are. And that's
Hmm.
the kind of the basis of social work is like we're taking the entire picture into consideration, like early childhood, environment, um, food insecure, like very all of those things, right? And I
Right.
don't like how Western health tends to minimize or dismiss those things. Anyway, so Gabor Mate talks really like beautifully about it. And he also wrote a book called Scattered Minds, which is
Okay.
about ADHD. And he believes that ADHD is also an attachment wound or can be related to an attachment wound in early childhood. So, a long winded answer to your question is like, it could be rooted in something else like ADHD, but also ADHD can be rooted in trauma from
Hmm.
early childhood connections. So, full circle, you're just more sensitive. And people with ADHD are also tend to be very empathetic and intuitive. And
Hmm.
so you're just reading the energy and feeling things at a little like a higher.
Right, like a heightened state or something.
Yeah, yeah. So we just get impacted, I think, a little bit differently. And then learning that that was like a real thing, I was like, oh my God, I'm not as messed up as I thought I am.
Yeah.
Like this is a real thing. Like it really like biologically
Mhm.
bothers me, like to
Yeah.
be rejected. That's why I could never be in sales.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that to me. They're like, I could never be in sales because I don't like rejection. And what's interesting for me in sales, or with the times in my career I've been in sales, and technically everyone's in sales because you're always selling yourself to some extent, right? But in a true sales role and in the profession of sales, to me, it's always been you just put on your sales hat. So you kind of become a different persona to some extent. You're still who you are, and who you are does help you, let's say, build those relationships and close the deal, so to speak. But you're checking yourself at the door, so you don't have to bring all of that emotional baggage and all of that weight and heaviness that comes to probably most other interactions that you have in life, right? In most other instances, you're thinking that who you are and who that other person is, that's complete reality. But in sales, you know, it's business, so there's a little bit of a buffer there. You're not taking things as personally, especially if you represent a brand and you're not, let's say, creating the product or service out of thin air. It's less attached to you. So someone rejects it or says no, I just hear that as not right now. But it doesn't mean not ever, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. It just means that may not be the right fit for them at this time. But that doesn't mean we can't still be friends. It doesn't mean I can't check in on them because they haven't rejected me. They just are
Right.
saying, hey, not right now.
No, and I totally get that. And I am good at compartmentalizing. So I working for like another brand, I think I could go in and make that disconnect. But when everything is so personal,
Yeah. That's the kicker. So how do we separate ourselves when it's not sales for work, right? It's not, our paycheck doesn't depend on it, but we still can't be so heavily attached to an outcome, or attached to the feelings and thoughts of other people reflected or projected onto ourselves.
I think that's a really great point. And I think that's something that comes with like emotional maturity and growth is being able, and something I talk a lot about in session and with clients and with people in general is just detaching. There is no good or bad. Like we like to label things as good, bad, positive, whatever. But really, if we do detach and just let things be, that's like the healthiest thing we can do and just allow things to happen organically, which you and I have talked about it before. Like astrology has really helped me with that, and reading like a daily horoscope. I subscribe to the Chani app. She's my favorite. But just and that helps me let go and trust the path that I am meant to be on. And that also helps to reaffirm it's constantly like just be yourself. Everything that's meant for you is already within you and it's already on its way. So you have to trust the process and essentially get out of your own way. When we attach so much meaning to things, to like how people perceive us or whatever, like that can be really detrimental. And a lot of people are projecting on us. So if there's something that you don't like in me, then it's also like ask yourself what it is that I'm triggering in you that is like causing you, or you just don't like me. You cannot like me, that's
Yeah.
also fine. But
Yeah.
but I also like what is it that is like am I bringing up for you?
Right. There's a likelihood, right, that something is getting churned up in them and it has more to do with them than it has to do with you. So that's a very good point to make. When you mentioned astrology, I started thinking about how helpful it can be to zoom out of these situations, right? To create some distance and be able to detach in a healthy way. Many folks may use journaling, meditation, spirituality, or astrology in this case to kind of give that blueprint of, hey, there are other factors at play. This is much bigger than you, and even you and another person or you and 100 people. It's still bigger than how it feels, right? And in the moment, so many things feel so big. They feel very magnified, and we sometimes come up with permanent solutions for temporary problems. I know that phrase has been thrown around a lot, to mean different things, but sometimes in that moment that seems to be the only way out. It's like I'm completely stuck and I only see black and white, good or bad, one or the other, right? I just see two options, but I'm not seeing any gray area in between. That's the moment, truly, when you want to take that breath, take a step back, obviously do something different, maybe go for a run or a walk, but zooming out and having some outside influence, maybe paint a picture of what could be, can be really helpful. So tell me more about what drew you to astrology specifically to maybe help get that perspective for you.
Oh, that's so funny. So I am not very, my mom projected her own, moms projected her own, like, I played, grew up playing soccer. So the weekends were full, like I was on going to soccer. And so she had her own thing about I wasn't religious, right? Like, and she felt shame that I couldn't like recite very common like prayers or passages or whatever. But it's like, Mom, we're not religious.
Yeah,
And
right.
I think it's funny because at an early age, I realized that the way that I was practicing religion or talking to God felt very misaligned because I was like, I feel like I'm only doing this when I need something. And I was like, and that doesn't feel right to me. So for a long time, and that happened to me like early in childhood, like adolescence, like kind of
Wow.
early for someone so young to be thinking like that. But it
Hmm.
felt really like cringy to me because again I'm somebody who really like, and it's just in my wiring, so I have like a head start. It's just part of who I am that it's hard for me to not be this way. um so I kind of like wrote off religion. I think for a while I like considered myself an atheist, and again as I grew I realized that spirituality, like you were saying, was such a bigger, like more encompassing almost umbrella, and so many things can fit under spirituality. You can bring religion under that. You can bring astrology. You can bring human design. You can bring Hinduism, Buddhism, like whatever you want.
Right.
And it's
Hmm.
like it's your spirituality is a way to, like you said, connect to something bigger than yourself. So I look at astrology similarly to how some people would look at a religion. They do it in 12-step programs, right? Like it's believing in something bigger and higher than yourself because it's part of the surrendering. It's part of the letting go that you were talking about. And so, as someone who wasn't super religious but felt spiritual, I leaned into astrology and most recently human design, and allowing those to help me learn and understand more about myself. Because when
Hmm.
I read it, I'm like, oh, I feel seen. I'm like
Right.
somebody like this makes sense. This,
Right.
okay, it tracks. And I think that if it didn't land, maybe I wouldn't feel so strongly about it.
Mhm.
But the fact that everything I look into and everything I research lands and fits perfectly into my life and my history and where I'm trying to go, I
Mhm.
just feel like I have no other thing. Like, why not believe it?
Right, right. And can you tell us more about human design and what that is exactly?
And you're gonna, I don't really know. I don't read astrology. I can't read charts. I don't read human design, but you can, fun fact, like do a freebie and then plug it into your chat GPT, and chat
Okay.
GPT can like break it down for you, or you can
Okay.
like go to a person and pay them because,
Right.
don't
To
robot.
tell you what it
But
is.
so it takes astrology, and I like traditional Chinese medicine, which I also have strong beliefs in because of what I've learned through sound healing. So it takes a different theories and frameworks together, and it's just another way of like identifying and understanding yourself. So I'm a 5-2 projector. The human design girlies or whoever out there knows what that means. I'm not going to be able to explain it well, but a
Hmm.
projector is somebody who really values being seen and like accepted for their wisdom and their guidance. And the biggest thing that I learned is that my shadow side comes out when I'm like giving people advice or doing things for people when I haven't been invited. And that was definitely me probably in my 20s and my teens. And so now with building a business, I really look into human design to kind of help guide me. Like it says, like, I need to rest. And as somebody, like I told you, I played soccer, I was a Division 1 athlete, like I was going, 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 going. And so, like, rest was unproductive, rest was shameful. You're sitting on the couch. What are you doing? You could be outside, you could be doing this. And so, having to unlearn that rest was a bad thing and be able to lean into it for the sake of like my own sanity to
Hmm.
grow my business, and then waiting for the right invitations, and the right invitations and the right people will see me and be able
Right.
to appreciate my like perspective and my gifts more than if I'm just offering it uninvited.
Yeah. And I can already hear my brain chiming in with this is the perfect recipe for where the lack mindset comes into play, right? Because we're ambitious, overachievers, but you're telling yourself, okay, I want to take a pause. I want people to come to me. I want to attract the right energy. So I'm going to wait. But what if they never come to me, right? What if those opportunities don't come my way? And it's because I'm not doing anything, right? Because we're doers and we're taught to just keep going out and doing things, fill our calendar, fill our schedule. I told you I've been up since 6 a.m. doing so much around my house today, cooking, cleaning, all the stuff. And here we are, 11 a.m. recording this. And it's just kind of like, why am I just like a hamster in a wheel right now? And I know you even said for this upcoming month, you wanted to carve out some time for yourself, but now you find yourself, double booked again. And it's almost in our nature to not be able to say no sometimes or to always go out. I like the fact that you're pointing out you want to show up in places where you're invited, where you're not giving unsolicited feedback and advice, right? So often in our life, someone, our friend, colleague, whoever is venting to us, they're sharing something that's going on in their life. And that's our opportunity to say, hey, do you want advice on this or do you just want me to listen? Right. And kind of differentiate that not everyone wants to hear all the wisdom that we have in our minds and all the life experience that we have to share, because it may not be applicable for them or relevant in that moment, especially if they're not in a place to hear it. And many times we all have too much going on in our lives that we can only handle so much. But knowing all of that, how are you navigating through that? Knowing that you're a doer and maybe it's not so easy to just sit back and be patient, but still wanting to create space for yourself, knowing that that's probably better for you.
So when I started, you talked about black and white thinking. I can definitely be an all or nothing type of person. And so sometimes that worries me. But when I started recognizing, learning, and unlearning the power and benefits of rest, I would say this relates back to COVID. I was a medical social worker in the ICU. So I was like literally in the trenches.
Hmm.
And the burnout was so real. And I only had the capacity to rest. Like I really could not do other things. And then it started to become more like I started to become more aware of like how important rest is and was. And then when I started learning about my human design, it's like you actually are the most successful when you rest. And I was like, okay, say less. Like,
Right.
if I can get
Sign
more
me
by
up.
doing less, and then
Yeah.
so like really trying to lean into that. And then I was just so tired and asking myself, like, did I give, is this everything I can do? Is this like, did I do my best? I maybe only had 70%, but like, if that's all I had to give, then that's me giving 100, right? There
Mhm.
are some days I felt like I could literally only work my 8 hours and come home and that was it. And that
Mhm.
had to be okay for me. Like I had like radical acceptance. Like I had to accept that like I couldn't do more. And then during COVID, like we couldn't do more. We were
Right.
confined to our homes. Like,
Mhm. Yeah, the world was, not allowing for us to do extra things at that time. Or if you were, you were doing it within the four walls of your, living environment. Um, and
right.
I'm even thinking the radical acceptance that you point out. I mean, how many times have we done something in our life and then we're in our head about it, or we're in our head in the moment and then that drags out for maybe even days, sometimes weeks at a time? How can we just radically accept ourselves? I mean, one of the solutions that came to mind is affirmations in the mirror, right? Like looking at yourself in the
Yeah.
mirror, locking eyes and being like, hey, I love you. You're okay. We're going to get through this. We get through everything. And doing that does help lift my own spirits. But truly, there's no real quick fix, right? And I know your work in therapy, you probably have folks coming in all the time, like burdened by life and turning to you for advice and guidance. It doesn't mean you're immune to these human circumstances, but I'm sure maybe you have more experience helping people navigate through giving themselves a break and giving themselves more grace. What would you say to someone in that situation?
I would say radical acceptance doesn't mean that we like what we have to accept. And it maybe doesn't even mean that we agree with what we're being asked to accept, but we literally cannot change it. It is
Mm,
what it is. We could turn ourselves inside out and backwards, and it's not going to change the situation. And again, I'm in an era where I'm not doing more, or I'm really trying not to do any more that's required. And so, I just have to come to with the acceptance that this is how it is. This is what the situation is. That's how a person responded. That's how like life played out for me. I don't like it, but I have to
mhm,
accept it because I have to move on. Like there's comes up with body image a lot. Like I either can stay inside and become a hermit and never go outside, or we can be like, you know what? This is the best I have for today. Wear something that feels good and get
mhm.
yourself outside.
Right, right. I love that. That's a great example. Something that is timeless. We have these bodies for the entire time that we're alive on this earth. So to think that you're immune to body image issues, I mean, that must be nice if you are, but our bodies change so much from start to finish that even if you like your body for a certain amount of time, it's never going to last, right? Because nothing really lasts, good or bad or anything in between. It comes and goes, and nothing, is guaranteed forever. So, just being able to accept ourselves and kind of care for ourselves in the best way, especially because this body is our physical home while we're on earth, right? And we're with ourselves the longest of anyone in our life. And there's just so many ways to reflect on that and go deep with it, but it's something that you kind of have to come to terms with for yourself and figure out what makes sense for me, and how can I treat myself the best way, because our minds can be our best friends, or they could be the biggest weapon working against us if we're not careful. And it's too easy to go down a negative rabbit hole, and just beat yourself up, maybe because you felt the world was beating you up, and maybe that's your own interpretation, internalization, projection, whatever it is. But you don't need to magnify and amplify that by doing it to yourself when no one else is doing it to you, and I'm speaking from my own experience, but yeah, go ahead.
No, for sure. And there's something with our generation where we believe that at the end of this rodeo, we're going to get some award for like being the shittiest to ourselves. I don't know where this came from. I don't know how we developed it, but it's so, and this is something that I struggled with until I started being like, the words and the things that you say really matter. And I'm like a sarcastic, hilarious person. So, but I would shame myself. Like if I tripped over something, I'm like, oh, you're so dumb. Or what,
Mhm.
like things that you don't think are like that meaningful, but day in and day out, when you're like shaming yourself or cutting yourself down, like that stuff really matters and makes an impact. I've said a couple of times this week, like us thinking and talking negatively to ourselves is very equivalent to us just like punching ourselves in the face. We wouldn't
Wow.
necessarily do that. So why are we continuously just beating
Right.
ourselves up? Because our thoughts,
Hmm.
dictate our feelings, which then dictates our behavior. If I think that I'm unworthy and I feel that I'm unworthy, then that's going to make me act and behave in a way that represents me feeling unworthy, whether that's settling for less, not setting the boundary, saying yes to things that I don't want to do for the sake of other people because I don't believe that, I can say no. I have to like show up for everyone else. Um, so our mind is so, so powerful, and we give it the credit it deserves, but we don't take it as seriously as I think that we need to, because the things and the belief systems and the patterns that we repeat are very meaningful and very impactful in our day-to-day life and how we show up.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And when we have high self-worth, and knowing that, our value doesn't come from all the things around us, or, all the labels that we have, then you know that you want to advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself. And the phrase that comes to mind, which dawned on me, I actually had a dream about this. So whether I heard it somewhere else or not, I don't know. But in my dream, myself was telling myself, right, leave at the first sign of abuse. And what's interesting about what you just outlined is, yeah, we wouldn't punch ourselves in the face. And a lot of times we think of abuse as physical or violent. And often abuse is covert, it's hidden, it's subtle, it's pointed and intentional, but maybe other people aren't picking up on it. It can be, verbal, emotional, psychological, it could be religious, even. I mean, there's all sorts of abuse out there, but it's not the big bad wolf in your closet, or the monster knocking on the door, or vice versa. It's none of that. It's, the people, and we're meant to know ourselves the best, right? Sometimes we're our biggest abusers in that case, because mentally we're verbally abusing ourselves and assaulting, who we are as people all the time. And like I said, when you have high self-worth and you know your value, the best case is that you're not going to let someone else treat you that way. But at the end of the day, if you're still treating yourself that way, what's the difference? It doesn't matter how confident you are. You still believe some of this to be true. You still believe you're not good enough. You still believe there's something wrong with you. And I think that those are the limiting beliefs and the lies that we tell ourselves that we have to confront and pull to the side and be like, hey, why do you still think that? Haven't we either proven enough or believed enough in ourselves to move past that and let it go? Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. I felt compelled to share that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that right now.
No, I think you're so right, and I know that you have read No Bad Parts. And
Yeah.
so what you got me thinking about is so many of our core beliefs or our limiting beliefs, our internal belief system comes from our conditioning and what we learned in childhood.
Hmm.
Another thing that I've been saying a lot, and when I talk to my clients, it's like this has actually been coming up for me as well. So like I'm sharing it with you thinking it'll be helpful. Um, so when I say like I've been talking with my clients, it's also because I thought about it for myself and then I shared it with them. Anyways,
Yeah.
a lot of I think, and my experience is not always things that were directly said to me, but the things that were being said around me and being like, oh, I never want anyone to think of me or talk about me like that. Or like, oh, let me make sure I don't ever look like that or present myself like that so people can't say those same evil things about me. And
Hmm.
then our conditioning just becomes so deeply embedded from our families, from society, from trying to fit in, being women, all of these boxes and things that we're supposed to check, that we don't actually like know who our true voice is. And so I love that you said like pulling ourselves to the side, because that's parts work, right? Like internal family systems
Yeah.
says to look within side of us and be like, who little person in there is being triggered, talking to them, validating them, and being like, hey, I don't know if you realize, but like time kept going. We're actually 35 now. We don't
Right.
have to be stuck like this 12-year-old version of me that is like really feeling like bad and down and like questioning myself. Like that's all really valid, but we grew up to be 35 and we started to actually figure some things out. And like, I promise I'm going to keep you safer than you are believing that I will.
Right. No, I love that. And when I met you, I was reading When Religion Hurts You and No Bad Parts, which is about internal family systems. And
Mhm.
when I kicked off this year's podcast in 2025, I mentioned those books specifically because they made such an impact in my life and my own personal progress and how I see the world and even see business because there's a lot of these underlying, I mean, you're dealing with humans in business, right? So even if you want to have a separation of church and state, so to speak, the reality is humans are everywhere and these are the realities that they're dealing with. So even in business, you're going to come across, fundamentalism, conditioning and grooming and things like that, that people maybe are on a little bit of autopilot. This is what they've been taught to believe, so they're just, going with the flow, marching orders, so to speak. And yet at the end of the day, they have those childhood wounds and those internal parts of versions of themselves that have never been brought to light and never been consoled by their higher self, by their current age self, right? And that's why you see so many adults acting like children sometimes or being emotionally immature to the point where it seems like they're throwing what looks like a toddler's tantrum, but they're in a full grown body, which
Mhm.
is really interesting to see sometimes or to be around or to even experience yourself when, your nervous system is so overstimulated that you don't have maybe the healthiest tools in that moment to dial it back and, take a breather.
Yeah, I think it's just recognizing like you're being activated. I people a lot of times will be like, "Well, I'm so like worked up that I can't think straight." And it's like, but you know that you're worked up enough to know that you can't think straight. So there is a moment in time where it just requires a pause. Like you
Hmm.
said before, pausing and being able to look at the bigger picture because everything feels so heavy and chaotic when we're in it. But there really is an opportunity, whether we want to believe it or not, to pause and take a step back. And I
Hmm.
think that in internal family systems, what I like to is like where all of these parts are just stuck at different ages. So it's like a 5-year-old me, 12-year-old me, 16-year-old me, even a 25-year-old me, right? Like a 30-year-old me. They're just stuck in different parts of our lives, not realizing that like things have continued to progress and evolve and being like, hey, I know that this is a concern for you and it was. And like but we figured out how to navigate this now and we're going to do it a little bit better. I just need you to trust.
Right, right, exactly. You're so relatable. I would love if we weren't friends, I could see you being my therapist, right? Just because I just can see you in that space so easily. But it's funny because I think back on your life too. I mean, you were a D1 soccer player, you auditioned for the real world, you could have been on our TVs at home. And now and now you're a therapist and you help people with breath work and sound baths and things like this. And I feel like you take such an open minded approach to not only your personal life, but even your practice now. And I'm curious if you can expound on that because that's not every therapist's approach. And what made you feel confident enough to do that? And was that something that was even an option when you were going to school for it?
So the funny thing is I never actually wanted to be anyone's therapist. I told like I was working in the ICU. I was in California, so I was working at Stanford. I'm back in Virginia Beach now, which is my hometown, and it medical social work doesn't exist the same way here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of made a pivot, but before I became a social worker, I was a recreational therapist and I started working right after undergrad in a residential facility for like kids, adolescents, teens, and then I moved into adult inpatient mental health. So I've just seen I have seen and heard and witnessed and sat with like so much pain and so many people's like trauma, and it really does require such an open mind because I am like really trauma informed. I have like a trauma informed lens. There's a different word that it's not coming to my mind right now. Um, but like our trauma changes the way we think, feel, and move and behave. And so we have, like, I think it's so important to be able to give people the space to show up, even if it's not really functional for them, and give them the space to be like, okay, I understand that, like, this is really hurting you. And I understand that this, like, didn't feel good. And, and I say and very intentionally because it's the duality. It's like multiple things can be true at once. It's like,
Mhm.
and we have to respond differently or better. And I just think it's everything that I wanted, right? I think that's a lot of us. Like, I want to do and be and create spaces that I felt like I needed, because for so much of my life I just felt like I was really trying to fit in. And again, I was popular, right? Like, I was a popular girl. I played varsity sports. I was a student athlete in college, but it was still like trying to keep up. And God forbid anyone ever know that I was like fighting for my life to be seen as this like version that was like, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know. And then I was drinking a lot and like masking that with like drinking and partying so I could drink and like be disinhibited and then be like, oh, look, I'm so fun. And then,
Right.
that would quickly escalate to like
Mhm.
mayhem
Yeah.
and
And
more
then you have the
dysfunction.
anxiety the next day or the next few days, thinking back on what you did, what you said, what people think of you, right? And again, back to being seen. It's funny that we started this conversation about how maybe you don't like to be seen. And then you're saying the projector, persona within the design person. I'm still not
Yeah.
familiar with that. But that
No, you should really get a reading though. You would like it.
yeah, I'm going to. But that persona wants to be seen for who they truly are, right? And you want to be acknowledged and you want to be valued for your opinion because it's coming from a place of wisdom and life experience. So it's almost this dichotomy within yourself. It's kind of this catch
Yes.
22. You don't want to be on stage, but there's a part of you that wants to be on stage for the right reasons.
Right. Right. I like to think of, I don't know if you're familiar, but in basketball, there's the sixth man of the year award.
Right, right. The
And
audience.
yeah, the sixth man, like, you're not a starter, but you're the
Yeah.
first off the bench. You're the one that the team looks for to come and like make a difference and make a change in the game, in the dynamic of the team. Like,
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
and
I
so
was
like I
thinking the
resonate.
cheering section is like, I don't know how many players are in basketball. So I was like, oh, the extra one, that's the cheering section, right? But
That's
that's a
Texas
good,
A&M, the 12th man. The whole
yeah,
stadium is
12
like
man.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair. Okay, so explain that again.
It's just like this, because we put so much, I think, attention and desire in being like the starter, right? Like being the
Mhm.
star, being the LeBron, right? But at the end of the year, the sixth man, the first one off the bench, the one who's not starting, they're still being recognized. Like, there's still a role. And this came about for me because I went from being a starter and like big fish, small pond in high
Mhm.
school and the things, going to college and being a very little fish and a
Right.
bigger pond, and not having the college like athlete experience that I really wanted and was hoping for, because I got hurt. Like, I was hurt. And so, like, well, and that really messed with my confidence as well. But knowing that I was still contributing to the team, like, that's when I started to understand like roles. So my role was like to be a motivator. My role was to be, I'm like a quiet leader, like lead by example. Like, I'm
Mhm.
doing the right things and I'm showing up and doing what needs to get done. I may be complaining, but that's okay. I'm still getting it done. And I
Yeah.
might not be like the team captain, but I'm still there. I still have a purpose and I'm still leading quietly by example. And so that's what I think about, like the sixth man, first off the bench, being a role player. You don't have to be the superstar. And I started to be, again, the rejection. Oh, what do you mean I'm not the captain? What do you mean I'm not the greatest thing ever? Okay, and it was like, okay, well, let me figure out how I can still be supportive, how I can still make a difference
Mhm.
over here, kind of on the outskirts or on the outside.
Right. I love that. Thank you for that, kind of visual analogy and walking us through that. I don't have sports references in the back of my pocket or whatever. So I think that's great. And I'm just noticing the time. I mean, this chat has been so amazing, but is there anything, maybe that we haven't touched on or something top of mind that you'd want to close us out on? And I wish I
Yeah.
could draw the through line for you from your basketball analogy, but unfortunately, that's not my forte.
No, and I have an analogy for everything. I think that's like the therapist in me. So like, and my poor clients, I'll like sit in session. I'll be like, I'm gonna make this connection, and it's not. It may or may not land, and it may
Right.
be coming like way left field. They're so kind to me. They just accept me for who I
Yeah,
am and what I
which
have
I
to bring to the
love.
table.
Yeah.
Um, no, I really appreciate. I know we talked a little bit about like I made a post yesterday and
Yeah.
was like so vulnerable, like putting myself out there and
Yeah.
like, but the behind the scenes part of it was I was
And wait,
freaking.
so hold on, because that is something I wanted to tell you about, right? So I'm scrolling my Instagram and I see your post and you listed out, all these things about yourself. And there were so many different things, and some of which we've touched on, right? Your quirkiness, your proper name, who calls you and how they're calling you, but also the fact that you are a therapist and you're trying to help people, discover themselves. I loved this post so much. I went on my business Instagram account just to give it more engagement and hype it up. I'm like, girl, you are doing it. I'm obsessed with you, right? And then this morning we're chatting and you're like, you wouldn't believe how I felt after I hit post, right? So tell me about how you were feeling. Because from my
Look at
end,
my body language. I'm like,
right, you're like closing in like a shell. Yeah. And I'm over here
um,
thinking, Carly's being Carly and just fearless and putting yourself out there and setting such a great example how we can radically accept ourselves too, and not be filled with shame or driven by those feelings of shame.
so I think this is actually a great thing to like wrap up our conversation because it's what you don't see, right? Like I put it out there and it looks like something that like so confident, like so here I am, but what we don't know is in the background I was freaking out and I was like, "Oh, but Carly, like this is the being seen, like you have to allow yourself to be seen in this way." And then I'm also like, is this the best way to describe me? Should I have added other things? Did I say the right things to also make it come full circle to be back about business and what I'm trying to do, or is it just like this vulnerability post? Because at the event that I had over the weekend, and then I had seen some people intermittently, and they were like telling me like I follow you on Instagram and like thanks for sharing your story, and I was like, oh my god, like thank you, and I was like, and so that empowers me to like keep showing up and keep sharing my story. Again, I don't like the Western like philosophy of like healing and therapy. I hug my clients. I tell them personal stories because I'm a freaking human being. I like,
Mhm.
we are not that different. And if I've had so many life experiences and I can use my life experiences and my education and my clinical skills to help people navigate through the shit because life is hard. Life is
Yeah,
so hard. Being an adult is so hard. Like I don't people underestimate like what it takes to like wake up, take a shower, brush your
right.
teeth, feed yourself. There's a lot that goes into just being
I know.
alive. And like we're over here thinking that we're supposed to like be driving Bentleys and having, five-story homes on a body of water. Like it just doesn't it's just hard, and it we live in a time of comparison and influencer and all of those things, and it's like if I'm going to be seen, then I want to be seen for who I am, and I want to be seen because I kept showing up. Like things were so hard. Like I have depression, I have ADHD, I have anxiety, like my husband has PTSD, complex PTSD, like story for another time. It's like, but and through all that, like we still tomorrow's gonna come, bills still have to get paid. Like you don't really have a choice. And so it's like being okay and just accepting like it doesn't have to be okay, and that's okay. Like just keep going because the only way out is through. right? Like our heart, and it makes me think of Brene Brown too, who like was the jumping off point of when I
Yeah.
started my social work degree.
Oh,
She
that's
was like
awesome.
starting to get really viral with her TED Talks and stuff. And I was like, I
Mhm.
want to be Brene Brown. And
Yeah.
she was like, in order to like love and experience joy, then we have to take the risk. We have to risk heartbreak and sadness and disappointment in order to like experience all of the goodness. And then she talks about the man in the arena speech, which
Yes.
um yeah, and it's like if you're not willing to be in the arena getting your ass kicked with me, like I don't want to hear it.
Right. You have no room to talk.
No, like go to the stadium, watch from afar, and if you like want to cheer me on, petty or otherwise, like I'm here for it because I'm trying.
Yeah.
You know, like
And
this,
yet
it
how much,
sounds cliche, but like
no, go ahead.
we really don't have like it, we really get one shot at this.
Yeah.
You know, and people who have trauma, people who have faced a lot of loss, like we realize how fragile things
Mhm.
are. And it's like, once I came back home and realized that there wasn't anything I really wanted to do in my city, I was like, well, I guess I make it myself.
I love that. Yeah. And I just admire you so much, Carly, for putting yourself out there and for getting involved in your community in that way, being this shining light and showing up, to not only collaborate with other businesses as I've seen you do, but to also just be human being, and go where people are and show them that, even though life is difficult, we all have our challenges. My sister and I were having nearly an identical conversation. Like, do we ever get a break? Does it ever get easier? Why does everything need to be so difficult? But we're all in that boat. Everyone you talk to, if you get a couple layers deeper with them, they'll say the same things. And some people are better at masking it, some people are better at faking it, or putting on a good brave face. And I give them a lot of credit for that, because I think living that way is not easy either. I think it can be very taxing after a while. But at the end of the day, we're all in this human experience. We're doing the best we can, and we're all trying to figure it out and just survive many times. Every day is just one more day above ground. So it's like, how are you going to
Yeah.
spend it? What are you going to do with it today? And to your point about Brene and the arena man, how much more valuable is it listening to someone who's putting themselves out there, putting themselves in the arena? And then you can collaborate with them even further because they are a like-minded person, right? They're being vulnerable and brave, and you're being vulnerable and brave. And that's all we can really ask of one another. And then it builds mutual respect and rapport by association. And I think you and I are a
Yeah.
perfect example of that. So I'm so glad to have you on the show. And
Yeah,
your
I'm
insight has
so
been
grateful
amazing.
to be here. You know how much I love you. This is just so fun. I'm so glad we finally got to sit down to do it.
Yes.
And I just hope that like you continue to connect people. I
Mhm.
see a lot of myself in you as well, like your gift of connection. And that's part of why I wanted to start a coalition, like bringing
Yeah.
people together, solving like similar problems. We don't have to do this alone, right? And
Right.
like getting the right people in the
Mhm.
right places is a game changer.
It really is. And speaking of projects on the side, we have a collab book that we're working on with a group of women. So can't wait for that to come out and for more to come there. But it's just been such a great honor knowing you already. We're already changing the world in
Oh,
our way.
yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah, and I just again think and that's like full circle moments. Like if I didn't take their chance on going to Tulum, I wouldn't have met you. And it's like, yeah, you can go on a retreat, you can meet people, but the fact that it continues to like return to me. It wasn't I
Mhm.
met you one time, it was like, hey girl, good time, see you later. It's like this has been a relationship that's continued to build and foster and is like doing really huge things for me in my life as well. And it's like just so grateful.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Carly, for being here. You are tremendous. And I can't wait to see what else we
Oh,
do in the future together.
I know so much.
You are my most important listener, and I can't thank you enough for spending your time with me. If this content resonates with you, then hit subscribe. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube by following @ConnectorQueen. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you again on the next episode of Becoming You.